Screw it. How we doing today, folks? Right now, a little bit of a technical problem with our music that we normally show you and play for you, and I don't know what the heck's going on. Let me see if I can bring this up, Jack, because I got to do this with our music.
I gotta have my introduction, Mac. I gotta have my introduction.
So let's see if I can get the assistant producer on it, and let's see. There it is. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, our Sunday edition, This Week in Sports, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch on Mac Sports and the Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook pages. Please like, follow, and share the Facebook pages. Subscribe to the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel. We're also on Instagram and Twitter. Our website is nessp.info. For all information on our shows, guests, bios of the guests and shows, stores, links to those stores. I'm Mac with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer, former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, together bringing you national sports with special focus on Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, Jack.
Good morning, Mac. I'm so happy we got all the technical difficulties out of the way right off the bat. We're ready to go. Sports for the next 2 hours.
Thanks to my assistant producer, Linda, for getting that stuff up for as fast as possible. She's
Wait. If she does most of the work, why did you give her a title assistant producer, Mac?
Because she does so many things, Jack. She books guests. She works on research. She keeps the Northeast Streaming Sports part of our network up and going and keeping things going. Like last night, folks, if you didn't see on Northeast Streaming Sports, they had 3 football shows going live. Football games, actual football, great games. Northeast Streaming Sports, Jay McLovin and Logan Landers actually called our team that we follow, Connecticut Mustangs, did a great job. And, Jack, it's interesting as you watch the Northeast Streaming Sports grow that we're a big part of it. And it's just something that's really cool for us to be part of. But without further ado, let's get to why we're here this week in Sports, Jack. And I'm going to give a couple quick updates before we start. Boxing, great matches. Boxing is back. Lomachenko stops Nakatani. Am I saying that right, Jack?
Nakayama, the Japanese fighter who went the distance with Teofimo Lopez. And even though he lost widely that fight, he was competitive. And it was Vasily Lomachenko, Mac, his first fight back since losing to Teofimo Lopez. And he wanted to make a statement. Sometimes you have a thing called comparison fights. Nakayama, like I said, had went the distance with Teofimo Lopez in the fight before Lopez defeated Lomachenko. So Lomachenko wanted to come back with a vengeance, go one better, and he did, stopping Nakayama and looking more impressive than Lopez. And now people want to see a rematch, Lopez and Lomachenko, where would do great business, and it remains to be seen where that happens.
And the second fight, a great fight again, and I think Barrios made a huge mistake not being more aggressive. Davis stops him. And what power this little guy has. I mean, compared in size, he was a little bit shorter, smaller reach, got inside, started really taking it to him, and ended up knocking him down with body punches to the head. And they finally stopped the fight as Davis beats Barrios in a thriller, I thought, Jack.
Well, yeah, it was a thrill. He stopped him in the 11th round, but I wouldn't say Barrios wasn't aggressive. He's a bigger guy, fights in a tall stand-up style. There'd be times he would be taking it to Lopez, but at the end, explosive power prevailed. When Lopez opened up, eventually he caught him with big blows in the 8th round. He knocked down Barrios twice, and we still had half the round to go, and Barrios fought back valiantly and continued to fight back really hard in the 9th and 10th round. And the fight looked like it might be up for grabs, but then Davis landed the big punches on Barrios in the 11th round to end it. It was a terrific fight with both guys giving their all.
Yes, definitely. And before I forget, good morning to Tom. Tom will be joining us today, folks. Tom Kelly from the Philadelphia Network. He does a great show over there. We're gonna let him speak for himself when he comes on. But today, folks, we have 2-time Super Bowl champion Jim Jeffcoat from the Dallas Cowboys doing it at 9 o'clock, and also one of our favorite guests, our weekly guest, Robert Butler from Sportscope. Good morning to Carlos too, and he's a very great, loyal guy that comes in almost every day with us. So we like to have Carlos here. We love having Tom on. In fact, all of our people that come in,
they're like co-hosts, Mac. They're an extension of us, the regulars.
Yes, they are. So we'll have, that's what we got going on. Real quick, what do I got here? Anyway, the Bucks tied the series 125-91, so they're tied up.
Well, that was Friday. Yeah, that was Friday night. Yeah,
I know. I'm not going over the game, Jack. I'm just bringing up that it's tied right now, and they have. Let me see I know the Suns won yesterday.
Suns won. Yeah, Suns won. 84-80.
There you go.
Very low scoring game, Mac. And Mac, the shooting was dreadful yesterday. And that happens once in a while. One team might shoot really poorly, yet they luck out because their opponent is shooting really poorly as well. And it's like both teams couldn't make a shot. The Suns jump off to the lead. And the Suns seem to have a handle on the game all the way through. But the Clippers made some surges where it seemed like a few times they were just 1 point down, but then they'd miss baskets. Like the Clippers just couldn't get over the top. And your favorite player, Kawhi Leonard of the LA Clippers, was cheering his team on from the luxury suite, Matt. He was supporting his team.
The Booker.
I'm instigating now. I'm waiting for reaction from you, Matt.
I don't want to react to later.
About Leonard.
Booker at 25. Big story. Ayton has 22 rebounds, and Bridges grabs 13. They just outworked them in the inside, Jack. They played a better defense than they did the day before. And Kawhi, I'm going to get to later on the show again. So this week in sports, in the MLB, Jack, the Astros continue their hot streak. They're 9-1 in the last 10. They won 11 in a row before that. Pulled 3 games ahead of the A's, despite the signal calling a couple years ago. They have a good roster, Jack. And, the A's better start playing some ball, or Houston's going to run away with that. That's all I can say.
I mean, I think the Astros are going to come back down to earth. They've lost some key players, a couple of injuries, key injuries. I think they'll come back down to earth. But the Astros are a good team, make no mistake about it. And they're not exactly in the toughest division. So it basically comes down between them and the A's. And the A's aren't a powerhouse team themselves. So the Astros, should be there at the end. I mean, it's very compelling if both those teams play well. Both of them are going to get in the playoffs. One is a wild card, one is the division winner. So it's a good little race going on there with the Astros and athletics. And I think, Mac, with all the talk about pitches with the baseball, scuffing it, greasing it, this and that, I think it takes away from now the Astros sign stealing thing. It's not as big to the fans. The fans will still tease the Astros a bit, but there are other things to to discuss, in baseball as well as far as the rules being bent.
Yeah, no doubt. I want to bring up the Giants, and I'm going to tell you why. This team was not supposed to be this good this year, Jack. I mean, they go 9-1 in the last 10 games. They're 4.5 games ahead of the Dodgers, 5.5 over San Diego, 2-game sweep of the Angels, and first 2 from Oakland. They're getting great pitching. They're getting great hitting. They're coming from behind, and they're doing despite injuries, Jack. They're getting injured too, but they just keep on playing. It's to me, it's incredible.
They remind me of a couple of teams of the past who had banner years out of nowhere. Like in the late 40s, early 1950s, it was always the Brooklyn Dodgers and New York Giants winning the pennants. But one year, 1950, the Philadelphia Whiz Kids showed up for one season, and they won the National League pennant.
The what kids?
They were called the Whiz Kids. Since you have on Tom Kelly from Philadelphia, they were called the Whiz Kids, meaning they probably had a young team.
Right.
But they came up out of nowhere. Phillies were never relevant in any of the other years, but 1950 was their year. 1959, the Yankees had a streak where they won 14 out of 16 pennants. In the 1950s, the White Sox weren't relevant at all, but until the very end of the decade. But 1959, out of the clear blue, they win the American League pennant, and the Yankees barely finish over 500. It was an aberration, but the White Sox come out of nowhere for 1 year. This Giant team kind of reminds me of that. No one could see them beating out the Dodgers and Padres, and they still might not. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't bet on them doing it. But the way they're playing, they seem to have that type of outstanding year where they put it all together. Maybe a better example would be the 2000 Seattle Mariners, who won 116 games. I mean, they'd have some good teams, but they never approached that. But this Giant team seems a little special. Can't hear you, Mac.
It seems like they just have something. They just got something. I mean, sometimes you can't even describe it. It's just like they, for some reason, the coin always comes up heads. I don't get it. But anyway, so the Giants I'm excited about. We got Houston making a surge. The Red Sox are still holding their own. And Carlos brings up Tampa Bay Lightning. And this is the next subject I wanted to talk about. This is the set stage, Jack. We now have it. We have Samson versus Goliath, right? The favorite versus the ultimate underdog. Tampa Bay versus, the last year's Stanley Cup champions, the prohibitive favorite, called the best hockey team in the league, is going up against a team no one, Jack, would thought be anywhere close to this championship. Playing just about 500 during the season, 4th place. They come back. They beat the division winners, the Maple Leafs, from 3-1. They just completely destroy the Winnipeg Jets, sweeping them. And they come back and they beat. I should say come back. It was a pretty even series, but they beat the Knights, who were one of the favorites to win the Stanley Cup. So here they are sitting, waiting for this game. And Jack, I'm telling you that I have a feeling this is Miracle on Ice 2021 professional. They got one of the hottest goalies in the league right now, Carey Price, playing out of his mind. We never heard of these guys, Caulfield, Gallagher, Lakonen. We never heard of these guys. You're going to know a lot more about them before the series is over. I don't know how many games, Jack, and might go that full 5 games or 7 games. I'm not sure what the Stanley Cup is right now, if it's the 5 or 7. I think it's 7. I think that they could do it. I'm starting to believe in the Montreal Canadiens, Jack.
Listen, they've surprised us all getting this far. I mean, I'm going to have to go with Tampa Bay. I don't think the Tampa Bay Lightning are caught up in this story of the Montreal Canadiens. I think the public, us as fans, are caught up into it. I sometimes think, what would be best for the sport when you have the playoffs for a certain team winning? And would it be better for the sport of hockey if the Canadians, the big underdogs, the hockey-rich city, and the most hockey-rich city of all time is Montreal? Would it be better for hockey if they win their first Stanley Cup since 1993? Because it would mean everything to Montreal. Or would it be better for the league if the Lightning repeats? Because let's face it, it adds to the prestige of a league if you have super teams. We used to have the Boston Celtics. They would add to the prestige of the NBA during Bill Russell's time, a super team. The Packers under Vince Lombardi in football would add to the prestige. Even Tom Brady winning all these Super Bowls, it gives the league a certain prestige, names out there. And if the Lightning win their second in a row, then they're going for their third in a row. The focus is going to be on the Lightning next year to a large degree. And would that be good for the NHL bringing the attention? But with that said, Mac, it's easy and it's instinctive to root for the underdog. The Canadians are the underdog. And I think the average fan who couldn't care less normally who would win would be rooting for the Canadians because they're kind of the little guy, in this that came up out of nowhere. And if I had told you the Canadians would be in this position after they were down 3-1 against the Toronto Maple Leafs, clearly considered a better team, and we could stop and fast forward to this, we would be absolutely astounded. We would be doing a triple take whether the Canadians were still there. But it's a fun series. Are they on the roll? Are they on the roll, Mac? Are they a team of just magic who has a certain great momentum going and it's just going to carry it through?
Well, Jack, the Canadians made a decision to really go with their young guys. And that was just after they had that 5-game losing streak. They said, the heck with it. We're going with our young guys. And to me, there's nothing like a young – when there was the Miracle of Ice 1980, no one thought the United States hockey team had a chance against the Russians. Heck, they were beating our pro teams. They were beating our all-star teams. They were beating everybody. Great story. Great story. Our young guys are going up against it. If they get playing good, hey, we're happy. Listen, anything in sports can happen. And I'm telling you, Jack, there is a real good chance because these kids don't know any better. They don't know. They're playing their game. They're not in awe of Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, to me, I get your point about having a favorite, the evil empire. I get all that. It's very true. It's a good example of the Patriots, the Packers. A great example. But stories like this, Jack, stories like this make a sport. And I'm telling you, I have no doubt in my mind that Montreal might beat the Tampa Bay Lightning. Might.
Well, you mentioned the 1980 Olympics. We have the Summer Olympics coming up. That was the Winter Olympics. 3 days before the United States was supposed to leave for Lake Placid, the United States Olympic hockey team played the Russians before the Olympics and lost 10-3. And 10-3 didn't do justice for how the game played out because the Russian hockey team beat them a lot worse than the score would seem. 10-3. It was one-sided. And no one, gave the United States a chance of winning the gold medal. But they weren't playing the Russians till late in the tournament a couple of weeks later, so they got to play other games. They were winning. And Jim Craig, the United States goalie, got hot. All of a sudden, a hot goalkeeper in hockey can carry a team. A baseball player can't carry a team. A football player can't carry a team. A basketball player needs help. One guy by himself, no matter how great, needs a lot of help. But a goalie who's playing great could keep the puck out of the net, can keep the score 0-0 for a while. And that's what's going on really with Price with Montreal. Montreal gets a little lead. All these low-scoring games, they're winning because they have a hot goaltender right now. And if he can keep this up against Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay's not invincible, Mac. After beating the Islanders 8-0 Game 5, they let a 2-0 lead get away and lost in overtime in Game 6 to the Islanders. and they just beat them 1-0 game 7, and it was on a power play goal, which was a little bit flukish because the Islanders had a breakdown, on their own power play to give up the goal. So Tampa Bay, they can be had, but it's going to be a tough draw for the Canadians to keep this going, against the Lightning.
No doubt. Good morning to you, Dave. Glad you joined us today. So we're just to remind everyone, Robert Butler due up, two-time Super Bowl. Jim Jeffcoat will join us today, and Tom Kelly from an Eagles network out there will be joining us. I'll fill you in on more information as it comes in. In the NBA, a new star comes to the forefront, Trae Young. A team with a big problem, the 76ers. An experiment that failed, the first time, in a team who may get their chance, Jack, to shut up the critics, the Bucks. A lot of stories in the NBA right now, and all of them, to me, are very good.
I'm going to tell you, game 2 was kind of like a throwaway game for the Atlanta Hawks. They're in Milwaukee after beating them game 1. Of course, the Hawks wanted to win. It wasn't their day. Every team is allowed one horrendous game. Bucks absolutely had to win the game. They couldn't afford to go back 0-2 to Atlanta. They absolutely had to win the game. They came out firing, highly motivated. The Hawks were up 1-0. They had a lot of emotional games going on. They won the opening game against the Bucks in the series. They beat the Sixers in a 7-game grueling series. They were kind of like due for that letdown. You sometimes have to recharge your battery, and that was the case with the Atlanta Hawks, and they got blown out that game. But I would disregard the score going into game 3. There'll be a different team in Atlanta for game 3 tonight.
I agree. And, listen, the Bucks have the healthiest team with a superstar on it. I mean, Giannis, 2-time MVP. The Hawks kind of have a superstar in the making. The Clippers, I mean, their superstar is sitting back drinking cocktails in the luxury seat. And, maybe the Suns have a superstar, but that's more a team. I mean, Booker's good, but that's more of a team's game over there with his Suns.
I'm trying to find a way, Kawhi Leonard, to defend him in some way.
Oh.
I'm trying to justify why he'd be in the suite. The only thing I can maybe think of, and this would be legitimate, especially if his teammates understood, it might be killing him not to be able to be on the court and to have to be in the huddle and not play. He might not be able to take it. So maybe he explained to his teammates, it's killing me not to be out there in the court with you guys. I'm up there, sitting up there in the stands. I'm rooting hard for you guys, but it's absolutely tearing me up to have to be on the bench where I can't play. You don't know how he's communicating with them. I have to wait to hear, is there a rumbling amongst his teammates? Any rumor that they're a little upset with him? I haven't quite heard that yet.
I don't, Jack. I don't have to hear anything. How many competitors? What is Kawhi Leonard just the ultimate competitor? You don't think that every player that was hurt is on the bench is killing him not to play? It's killing him not to get in the game? Come on. I mean, this is what we do. We take these superstars and we try to figure out, well, maybe this, maybe that. Listen, the man belongs on the bench, and that's the end of the story. There's no other story, Jack. He should not be up in the luxury seats where he can help his team. He can root him on for the bench, will him on, give some advice to some of the players out there. Maybe he sees something that somebody else don't. Maybe he can get in the player's head of one of his teammates. That is ridiculous, Jack. There is no excuse to me for Kawhi Leonard not being on the bench.
I agree with you, Mac. I do agree with you. But sometimes I want to hear a reason. Sometimes there might be a reason. I mean, they got the coaches there. Let's be honest about it. Him not playing, he's not going to contribute anything. He might just maybe moral support, but in a certain extent.
Jack, he knows the players. He knows the matchup. He knows what the players do. I mean, he's going one-on-one with one of those players from the Suns. He knows what he does. He doesn't just do it on pure talent. And then Carlos is just as bad as you. He coddles the new players too. Listen, his input does affect the team. His input, he's a leader of the team. Of course it affects the team. He knows the players. He knows how to play basketball at the highest level, and he would be there to give some insight into how to cover this guy, or maybe how to make a move on this guy, or maybe even help the coach with a play that might work. His input affects the team greatly.
But could I tell you something, Mac? If he wasn't there at all in the arena, and the report was, well, he's rehabbing, trying to come back as soon as he can, we would forgive him. We would condone him. You see that a lot. I couldn't imagine Michael Jordan sitting on the bench encouraging guys when they couldn't play. We'd be told he's rehabbing. He's elsewhere. Some guys are on the bench. They're giving support. Other guys don't show up at the arena. So the feeling is, if he was going to show up at the arena, he should have been on the bench. He would have been better off maybe not being in the arena. Yeah. But so he's going halfway. That's his way. He's showing support for his teammates by being there. But listen, I agree. Basically, I do agree with you, Matt. And he would be better off being on the bench encouraging.
Carlos, you got to stop listening to the big media. We don't care if he's a social person or not. He's there to help the team. He can whisper it in the players' ears. He doesn't have to come out and make announcements. Backstage Jack, one of my favorite guests, Robert Butler from Sportscope. He joins us every Sunday with his insight, and of course, I'll be talking to him about this too. I get hot about it. Robert will keep me calm, I hope. So let's see if we can bring up Robert.
Hey, he talking about that Kawhi Leonard, huh?
Oh, it's driving me out of my damn mind. I don't like to get upset about people because everybody has their thing. But to me in sports, and I played it for a long time, I've been involved in sports for a long time. You tell all the young kids, hey, you're part of a team. You tell the kids you're there, you're a team, you're trying to encourage each other on whether you play or not. You have subs on the bench that are there that are encouraging the team on. And then you got this guy who decides that, well, I don't know if I can help you or not. Maybe I'll call in, like listeners do on a radio show. Maybe I'll call in and make some comments. That man is a leader of the team. He belongs on the bench. He might give the players some insight. He might will them to win something. Him sitting there saying, what the hell, I want to go to the championship. Anything. Sitting in a luxury box. I imagine the camera's on him all the time, too. It must be a great story. The media gives people like this a pass, Robert. You give them a pass.
Well, yeah, it's a players' league. Kareem was like that.
You guys are killing
I'm not endorsing it, Mac. I'm like you. I mean, I like that football culture where it is team. You want to be there for your team. What is the guy's name? Skip Bayless said he has a source that says now that he don't trust, Kawhi Leonard does not trust the Clippers medical staff. So, honestly, guys, we've got a quiet diva on our hands right now. And we just now figuring that out.
Well, guys, listen, but do you really condemn a player for not trusting a medical staff of a team? Because we've heard cases where medical staffs have tried to rush players back maybe a little sooner than they should have, and the player gets re-injured. And listen, even we mentioned like with Kevin Durant, his last year at Golden State, he got injured during the playoffs. The thought was, should he have been in there? Was he rushed back? We don't know. I mean, and I can understand the player wanting to see his own doctors who have no interest one way or the other. A team doctor is going to try to get a guy back maybe a little sooner than another doctor would.
Well, he didn't trust the Spurs staff either. I mean, now I'm starting to think, well, how much is it him just being overly paranoid about his body? I mean, now you got two staffs that are not good versus your opinion. I'm not sure about Kawhi Leonard. It's just, he's got a player option, guys, in August. So this could be a free agent story coming up in August where but you're going to have to deal with his load management. He's aloof, kind of like Kareem. Kareem wanted to be by himself. Not a very outspoken guy. He's going to have to be on a team with a loud personality where he don't have to take those questions. I mean,
Rob, I didn't realize in his case he has an opt out. If he wants, he can any team could sign him if he's willing to go.
Yes.
You know, as long as they fit him in under their cap and all, have cap space. That is intriguing because I'm going to tell you, every team in the league who could afford him under the cap is going to be all over him, wanting him in the worst way. He'd be well. Could you imagine he goes back to Toronto? He thinks, you know, I really had it good there the 1 year. The people loved me. The Knicks would be all over him. Imagine that news. He came to Madison Square Garden. That would be off the charts. Even Mac would love that. Mac's putting him down. But if he's available for the Knicks,
I don't want him.
Begging the Knicks to sign him.
I would boycott Kawhi Leonard every time he played. I turn the TV off.
Well, Thibodeau wants to play a lot of minutes, so I don't know.
This to me, Robert, is and I got comments flying in here from people trying to justify past players that I don't even want to get into that because I can bring as many examples of past players that were hurt that were on the bench cheering their team on. But the thing that ticks me off, if I'm the coach of that team, and it's just me, my opinion, if Kawhi Leonard was not on the bench, I'd fine him every time he wasn't on the bench. I would have the GM, and I may have him on the trading block. I don't want him. I'll take another superstar. There's plenty of superstars out there. I'd sign somebody else. Listen, you've got to – I don't care. These players do not run the team. They think they do still. They think they do. In some cases,
these are sensitive young men, Mac. You're living in a new era. Your old school stuff does not cut it in this day and age. These are sensitive young men. They think. They have feelings, Mac.
Yeah,
I've always thought that the owners should take the league back, even if you got to go through a lockout and get rid of this load man. I'm 110% with you, Mac. I mean, you guys are getting paid a fortune, guaranteed contract. Now, baseball is not too far from this. Do you guys recall when Chris Sale cut up all those uniforms? I thought that was some of the most amateurish, bratty. That's something like my niece would do.
Yes.
You know? He cut up all the uniforms because he didn't like the uniforms. Again, with the guaranteed contracts, that's what you get.
You know. I mean, you know something. I would.
Blue collar guys that work dogging for a living.
Can you imagine telling your boss, "Listen, I'm kind of hurt, or I pulled this. Listen. I need a week off. You got to pay me anyway. I got some inner problems, you know. I never mind being there. Listen. I don't feel like, working in this position. I want to go over to this position, and you know something. You're going to pay me anyway. I don't care. It's just
that sounds like a Kyrie Irving email, Mac.
Oh, God, I have no idea.
You remember that, Jack?
Oh my God. I have no idea.
Kyrie Irving was on the net bench during the playoffs.
Yes. I'm talking about his hiatus during the regular season.
Listen, part of it is, too, we don't know the friendships amongst guys. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant apparently are very close friends because when Kyrie would be talking to Durant on the bench, you'd see Durant speaking back to him, nodding his head. So they were kind of like taking it in. You don't know his relationship. You don't know what's going on now with Leonard and Paul George, for example. Okay? Maybe they're not that close anymore like they were in the beginning, and Leonard just doesn't want to be around. I mean, maybe what Robert said is very revealing. Maybe he has it in his head. I'm opting out. I'm not here at the end of the year. And this is his 1 foot out the door. He's in the suite. So he's not abandoning his team completely, but he's not on the bench. So maybe this is a more revealing sign, than we see, what Rap's pointing out.
Yes, maybe so. So there are a lot of people talking about this in Ben Simmons in the 76ers.
I know.
He has a $100 million plus contract, right? They signed him no matter, even though he wasn't the best shooter in the world anyway. They felt his defense, dishing the ball, drives to the hoop very well. But this series, I don't know what happened to him.
Let's move on from Ben Simmons. Leave him alone. Come on, he's a great defensive player. Don't make him a scapegoat.
Jack, this is This Week in Sports. This is not Ben Simmons' show. This is what happened this week in sports. So I know you understand that. So Ben Simmons, $100+ million contract. Choke. Now, I don't know if it's a mental problem because they say in pickup games he plays well. He couldn't make a foul shot, couldn't make an open shot, couldn't drive to the hoop and make a shot. Now, what do the 76ers do with Ben Simmons? With that value of a contract, I don't know any team right now, because of what happened in playoffs, that's going to pick up that contract and make a trade for him, Robert. What do you think?
I've already got it. I've already got this taken care of, Mac. You send him as far away from Philadelphia as you can. You send him to Portland. CJ McCollum's contract matches up perfect. I've checked this out. They need a defensive stopper. I've always thought McCollum and Damian Lillard, they kind of did the same thing. I think Lillard overshadowed him. Lillard's more of a shooting guard than a true point guard. McCollum has filled in for Leonard many of times, averaging 23 points a game. He's not shy. They've got Chauncey Billups over there as a head coach. They've got a new thing going over there in Portland. Get Simmons away from Philadelphia. Sheryl Crow had a great song out several years ago. I still listen to it when I'm driving on YouTube, called Change. A change can do you good. I think a change of scenery, working with a former player like a Chauncey Billups would be good for Simmons. And McCollum, a guy who's not shy at all, would be able to let his star shine a little bit more, playing with a Joel Embiid. And under that coaching staff, I think it'd be a good, clean trade. You wouldn't have to add players. You wouldn't have to get another team involved.
Guys, if you proposed that trade at the beginning of last year, people would think it's crazy. You don't give Ben Simmons up for that. So meaning, I think we tending to give up too easily on Ben Simmons. Keep in mind, on the defensive side of the ball, he's arguably, next to Rudy Gobert, the best defensive player in all of basketball. I can make that argument. And even though I don't consider him a natural point guard, he plays the point pretty well, gets a lot of assists. Just he's lost confidence. Basically, that's his problem. He doesn't want to shoot the ball. He's a poor foul shooter. Maybe they're just better off straightening him out at this point. But to just move him for the sake of moving him, unless it's so toxic in Philadelphia, there's a Joel Embiid factor, fellas. If he's fed up and he needs a change in the worst way, not necessarily him leaving Philadelphia, but the Sixers to make a move, meaning Ben Simmons, then I can understand it a little more because you don't want Embiid putting the pressure on to leave. But I wouldn't just give Simmons away so easily.
Well, I mean, when you pass that dunk up, that was a last straw. I mean, you're game 7, you can't pass a dunk up, man. What are you doing? He's already had a number of years, guys. We've talked about, Kobe Bryant told him in 2018, he said, Ben, this was a story I talked about on my show. You've got to work on your shot, man. You've got to work on not just pickup games. You've got to have a trainer out there with a broom and work on your post game, your turnaround jumper, your fadeaway. And he kind of poo-pooed that.
But guys, Trae Young went 5 for 23 from the field with Ben Simmons guarding him in that game 7. And you talk about coming up big defensively. He was terrific on the defensive end, Ben Simmons, but no one looks at that. They're just looking at it while the Sixers had the ball. So it's, like I gave the equivalent. It's like the best defensive player in baseball at his position, the best defensive shortstop, but he can't hit. But, you kind of stick with him because he does it from that side.
Portland needs that like nobody's business.
Robert and Jack, I think, first of all, the baseball analogy is not a good one because you got 8 other players. you're not playing offense and defense at the same time. So it's kind of a bad analogy, but I get what you mean, Jack. Listen, this is the first time me and Carlos are seeing eye to eye here. I mean, it's been a while.
Man.
And I think he's right. Simmons is not a point guard to begin with. He's maybe a small forward. You can play point forward. You can pass off.
Yeah, that's a term thrown around.
You can. So I think he's right. They need to give him a position. You can't throw him at point guard and then small forward, play small center on a small team. To me, he needs to get a position and work on it. Now, if you need him in a case of emergency to go to point guard, he can do it. the point is, I agree with Carlos for the first time in a long time. He needs to have a position and work at that position all off year, and maybe his confidence will come back. Because it's like, okay, Jack, you used a baseball analogy. Can you imagine they played you shortstop one game and then left field the next game and the first? You know what I mean? You don't have time to work on anything. So, I mean, this is something that I think would help. I was going to mention it in a little bit. Carlos beat me to the punch, and good job, Carlos. So there you go. So that's what I think of that. We have, a term in politics called fake news. Well, I'm going to call this fake sports news coming up here, folks.
Okay.
Because to me, there is so much sports games, stories going on, but the media likes to make a story out of nothing because they have two big personalities, one Hall of Famer, a potential Hall of Famer, and they want to get involved in this little back and forth, like two people arguing in a bar and everybody standing around and going to talk about it after it happens. So Scottie Pippen, who's trying to sell a book, he's never accepted the fact that he's the Robin to Michael Jordan, who's Batman. He's always lived in that shadow. I get that. He's got a book coming out to kind of straighten out the story of that series 24. I get that too. He wants to publicize his book, and he wants to make some things known that maybe weren't known in 24. But he goes after Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is one of the greatest basketball players in the game right now. He is better than Scottie Pippen in his prime. KD in his prime is better than Scottie Pippen. To me, that's not even a debatable topic. So you're going to go after KD and leave yourself wide open to when you decide to sit on the bench because the play wasn't going to you. And the media eats this up and it's leading stories. When you have great boxing going on, you got great series in the NBA going on, in the NHL, you got NFL revving up. This to me is sports fake news, Robert.
Yeah, people like the back and forth soap opera. These big sports talk shows like to do the stars and do that. I'm interested in it. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Now, if I'm Scottie Pippen, I don't know if I would say that when we're fresh off The Last Dance. I mean, Durant had two good comebacks. You didn't come into the game because you didn't take the last shot, and you got surgery on company time instead of the offseason, and then you didn't even regret it now that you're 50-plus years old. So Durant completely shut him down there. And I listened to that argument and watch it, and I thought to myself, Scottie Pippen needs to remember, he was talking about comparing LeBron to Kevin Durant. I remember those Cavs series in the finals when they played Golden State, when LeBron was running wide open and the Cleveland Cavaliers had a pretty good size lead in the first half, but he would wear himself down because they didn't have the depth at the end of games, and they ended up getting swept. I want to say maybe a gentleman's sweep and then a full sweep the next year when Kevin Durant's Golden State Warriors with the Cavs. So it looks the same. I mean, he's kind of playing armchair quarterback, Scottie Pippen. It's like he's been away from the game so long that he forgets that sometimes you just don't have the horses to win, Yeah,
I agree. I just don't see all the attention of somebody like Tom Brady saying, I don't believe they have, they didn't trade for me when they got, Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't believe he's starting. To me, this ain't sports, man. This is like little personal tirades. And to me, it deserves maybe a little bit of coverage, but man, it shouldn't be headlining when you got so much happening in the world of sports right now. Olympics coming up.
Well, listen, blame the athletes. Kevin Durant keeps the story going. He always reacts when something is said about him. He always goes back to Twitter. He could easily ignore it and it becomes a non-story, saying, look, I'm not interested in commenting on this nonsense, and leave it alone at that, and then the story ends. But he comes back and says something, and then it gets magnified.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a good point. So we have the most exciting stories in sports. And we have maybe the to me now, I know I haven't followed hockey in a while. I'm going to admit it.
Yeah.
I mean, I really haven't been into it because of the Whalers leaving, and then, hockey kind of is whatever. And, I did follow the Rangers a little bit from afar. I'll admit that too. But in a long time, I don't know, Jack follows it more than I do, Robert. But to me, this is one of the most exciting hockey seasons ever. You have Samson versus Goliath, as me and Jack talked about. You have the great underdog versus the ultimate warrior. I mean, this is like an event, not just a game. If for some reason Montreal can beat the Lightning, this will be a story that they'll read about for years, because there is no way anybody thought the Canadiens would be here. Never mind going up against the Tampa Bay Lightning for the Stanley Cup. Any other team, if it was the Islanders, that's if Montreal won, maybe. But this is supposed to be the best team in hockey. We said before, we said during, and been said during the playoffs, and I know they're a heavy favorite going in.
Yeah, I just think that it's the sport with the most parity, guys. They've had 0-3 comebacks in the playoffs, several 0-2 comebacks, 3-1 series comebacks in the hockey playoffs. I'm out of Nashville. There was a 7-game series here a few years ago. The Islanders, their national anthem went viral. The ladies singing the anthem. I think people's just so glad to be back in the stadiums now. It is a lot of buzz about that. But as far as being the David and Goliath, I just don't think there's that much of a Goliath in hockey. I think it's just the sport. It's almost too much parity where it's not that interesting to me in my humble opinion.
Mac, you tied it in a little bit with the 1980 Olympics, the U.S. Olympic hockey team, big underdogs, tried to make an analogy with this Canadian team. Well, that 1980 USA hockey team, during the Olympics, before they played the Russians, they decisively beat Czechoslovakia, was considered the number 2 team in the world, not that close to the Russians, but nevertheless the consensus second best team. And the Canadiens did something similar. Las Vegas is considered by many the second best team in hockey behind Tampa Bay, and the Canadiens beat the second best team in hockey. So our perception is that they're major underdogs, but in reality, are they really that big an underdog? Is it just our perception?
I think it's perception, guys.
Not to me, Robert. Not to me.
Yeah.
I mean, not to me, because I know that the season was kind of changed where they didn't play out of each other's leagues, which is a fair advantage to some teams to sneak up on it. I get that. But the thing that makes it really cool is that Montreal replaced a lot of their players. They put the new guys in, and they said, have at it. So this, to me, is a great story. And I'm going to tell you, 10, 15 years from now, they're still going to be talking about this series if Montreal wins. So let me see if we got one other thing for you, Robert, here.
Yeah, Pittsburgh.
There we go. Big bet.
Hey, we're 11 weeks away, guys. I mean, come on.
Yeah. So
next month's training camp, guys.
Yes, it is. Steelers, one of the best winningest franchises since the 70s. With a Hall of Fame quarterback, there's no doubt Big Ben's going to the Hall of Fame. He almost begged the Steelers to take him back for one more year. I mean, they were seriously thinking about letting him go. And he's willing to take a reduction in contract. The offensive coordinator's fired from last year. They went pass happy. That is not the Steeler way. The Steeler is in your face, running game, play action. Big Ben's a big quarterback, tough guy. Terry Bradshaw, big quarterback, tough guy. This is what Steelers are all about. Franco Harris, the bus. This is a Steeler offense. Well, last year, even though they went 10-0, they got out quick. They had the worst running game in the league, and they fell back to earth really quick. So, can the Steelers, if they get some kind of running game, can Big Ben do it one more time?
I'm not sure, guys. I mean, Cleveland has upgraded tremendously on the defensive side. Baltimore upgraded at receiver. I'm not sure with Lamar Jackson there how that's going to play out. Man, they've replaced 4 offensive linemen, guys. 4. If it's me, this Najee Harris, he's going to earn that first-round contract. 27 touches a game in the flat, running the football. I don't have them as of today, guys, making the playoffs. I was one of the few that said preseason last year they'd win the division. I liked what they had coming in last year, but this year I'm just not sure. The North is too strong. The AFC is too strong. Not unless they get Najee Harris really going and he has a rookie of the year type of year. Other than that, I don't see it, man. I think he's probably going to get hurt, and this could be his last year with Pittsburgh. That's just, you hate to see it. I like Big Ben, but
I think Big Ben is cooked. Basically, he's not. Yeah. He's not nearly the player he was before. Can he be effective with all the other pieces around him? He could be perhaps a game manager. That's it. But he's no longer a difference maker the way he was before. And I think with the compelling story in Pittsburgh is going to be Big Ben trying to hold on to still be the Steeler quarterback this year, beyond this year. And the Steelers are going to have to address the situation. But do they have his replacement, Mason Rudolph? It's hard to imagine Mason Rudolph, the backup, replacing Big Ben during the year. Or can Mike Tomlin, who's a great, great coach, pull off a miracle and make Dwayne Haskins fulfill his potential? You never know, but I could see it getting a little ugly in Pittsburgh as the year goes along. I don't see him making the playoffs, and I don't see Big Ben surviving into next year. Let me ask you guys, the last game of the regular season, assuming he's healthy, do you guys think Big Ben's going to be the Steeler quarterback?
Oh, I think he should have took more of a pay cut coming into this season, be honest with you guys. They should have upgraded their offensive line, and Tomlin's never had a losing season. You kind of like to see them lose a lot of games and get a quarterback. They've got a fair defense. They've got a good pass rush.
Well, when the quarterback's as revered as Big Ben, you don't want to cut him too badly. You want to give him a final season, maybe lean over backwards. I know football's not sentimental, guys, but in rare cases, underline the word rare, like Big Ben or Eli Manning, you treat a guy with a little bit of extra respect and give him a little more than you're comfortable giving for one final year before breaking ties. And they probably told Ben, there's a good chance this is the last year. We're going to be looking elsewhere, but we're going to do this for you. We're going to let you be the quarterback. And Ben's probably thinking, I'm going to have a hell of a year. And this way, they're going to have to stick with me beyond this.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be all of an out of plays. They need to be a 70-30 run-heavy team. Look what Peyton Manning did his last year. Tom Brady has mastered the short passing game, guys. There's none of this 5-step drop, let's go deep every other play. He's got to get out of that habit, or he's going to get himself hurt out there. I mean, there's a picture going out on the internet, and I put it on SportsScope, where he's got like a giant ice bag on one shoulder, another one on his knee, and then he's got another one on the other knee. I mean, that's saying it could be a preview of this season.
Listen, I'm
the Tin Man.
I'm rooting for Big Ben. I don't think the Steelers are gonna get close to the playoffs this year, but I am rooting for them because of that tough division. We'll see what happens. Yeah. Robert, thanks for coming in. We appreciate you having you come in every Sunday. And good luck, people. Check him out on SportsScope. Great site. He's everywhere on social media. That's SportsScope with a K. And check out Robert Butler do his thing over there on his site. Thanks again, Robert. We appreciate you coming in.
Thanks, guys. Have a good show.
Thank you, buddy. So that was Robert Butler joining us. Folks, we're going to take a quick break. But guess what? We got a huge treat for you. As the two-time Super Bowl champion, Jim Jeffcoat, Hall of Fame nominee, he's going to get there. I guarantee you, within the next couple of years, I'm calling up the Football Hall of Fame. I'm personally going to make sure that this happens for this man. Second leading sack and leader in Dallas Cowboy history. Outstanding player on a great defense nobody talks about. And we're going to be having him right after these messages. So stick with us. We might even have a guy from Philadelphia come in, because I know Jim loves Philadelphia Eagle guys, and that this guy will be in awe of Jim. I know he will be. Tom Kelly will be coming in also. So we got a lot of stuff coming up, guys. Stick with us, and we'll be right back after these messages.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too. Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah, zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's the first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, our This Week in Sports Sunday special. And folks, you're in for a big treat. After Robert Butler has left us from Sports Scope, we are joined by the two-time Super Bowl champion and Dallas Cowboy legend himself, Jim Jeffcoat. And we have a special kind of guest coming in, Tom Kelly, who is from the Philly Sports Network over there. He's with, I'll get the banner up here. It's hard for me to remember things. I'm getting old. You know how that stuff sets in and you kind of, you start losing your mind, Jack. You know how it is, right?
I don't know how it is, Matt. I don't keep an appointment book. I remember things up here. I could set a dental appointment 1 year from now, and I'm going to remember.
Yes.
I don't know how it is, Matt. Just like I don't know how it is to be on the field as an NFL player. I just know it's, watching from a distance.
I always look for your support, and I'm always extremely disappointed. So let's bring in the legend, Jim Jeffcoat. How you doing today, Jim?
I'm doing great. Anytime I get the time to spend with Mac and Jack, especially Mac, because Jack gives me a hard time, but
yes,
I'm doing great.
Yes. And see, you shook him up so much, he doesn't have his microphone on. He's a true professor.
If there's time, I have an intriguing question to ask you. If there's time, I'm not going to cut in on that at the beginning.
Don't you jump the gun on me again. I'll mute you myself.
No. Only if there's time at the end.
Okay. So let's bring up Tom Kelly. And let me get the banner as my assistant producer sets us up. He's with the Patterson Avenue Fanatics show on the Edge of Philly Sports Network. So I thought it'd be interesting to bring Tom on. I mean, Tom has said nothing but good things about you, Jim. So you don't have to get upset. But he is, of course, a Philadelphia Eagle fan, and he does a Philadelphia Eagles show. So I thought it'd be great having him on, just maybe to ask you some questions too. So
I don't have a problem with that. I'm not a Philly fan, obviously, but I don't have a problem. Yes. You gotta cheer for somebody.
Yes, you do. Okay, let's make mistakes. Okay, let's bring Tom up. Let's see if we can bring him up here. Come on, get out of here. Here we come.
Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
How you doing, Tom?
I'm good. First and foremost, thank you for having me. Mr. Jeffcoat, it's an honor to be on the air with you, and Mac and Jack, it's an honor to be on the air with you guys.
Thank you. Starting off really good there. Good job, Tom. So,
I'll go one step further, Mr. Jeffcoat, just to show you that I am not prejudiced to any team in the NFL. My mother used to say when I was a kid, if you knew your schoolwork like you knew the back of those football cards, you'll go places. Yes. Well, here I am now, Mom. I'm on the Mac and Jack show.
Thank you, Tom.
Tell me if I didn't get my homework done, that I wasn't going to have dinner. So it was a little
right.
And you look at Jim. He never missed a dinner, folks. You can tell that right now. So
next two of us.
Yes. So let's get to what I want to talk to you about first, Jim. Camp. All right, it's coming up, and it's changed a lot over the years, right? I mean, there was 2-a-days. You had 4 preseason games.
Yes.
I'm going to go back to when you first got in. Okay, you came in. And you're coming in as a rookie, very highly drafted pick, and you're going against a very, very good offensive line that you're going to have to match up against. So what was the first, when you started making contact with these guys and scrimmaging against them and doing drills against them, were you at all, I don't want to say intimidated, but was it a lot different than when you were going up against them college offensive linemen?
Well, that's a good question. When I was younger, you got to realize that, I was a number 1 draft pick. And then when I came in, you could have 123, 124 people in camp. So we went to camp 2 weeks before the veterans. We went to 2 weeks before the veterans. Our camps were 6 weeks. So we went in there and trained, and you thought you were pretty good because you were playing against other rookies. And I was like, I can play this game. But little did you know that when the vets came in and you're playing against a guy that's 34 years old, he's got 4 kids, he's just trying to make sure that his kids are fed. So it's a little different. The speed was different. And they knew what they were doing. We were trying to learn what we were doing and how to do it properly. So that's the biggest thing, is adjusting to the speed of the game. And we've talked about this before, is that when you play high school football, it's like you're on a dirt track. And I always, like in NASCAR and racing, car racing, then you might move up to, the next level. But when you're playing in the NFL, it's the highest level, the highest speed, and everything goes quick because they know what they're doing. They've been doing this for years. I'm playing with guys like Randy White, Too Tall Jones, John Dutton, and guys like that. And they know what they're doing, Harvey Martin. And then you look on the other side, Tom Rafferty, a longtime player on offense. There's so many players that you can go to. Pat Donovan, Herb Scott, and those guys when I first came in. And they knew the game, and they understood how Coach Landry wanted it played. So that's the biggest difference, is the speed of the game and adjusting to the speed of the game.
Can I ask you, Jim, is that why the wishbone doesn't work in the NFL because of it works in college because of the speed of the game in the NFL in comparison?
That's a good question, but there are components of the wishbone in pro football right now. Andy Reid brought some, and then there are other people that are bringing wishbone principles. They just like with the shotgun, how it developed over the years. The wishbone, really, if you look at some of these things that these people are doing, they're doing wishbone philosophies and components in the NFL. People say it doesn't work. They adjusted it because a lot of the run and shoot, or what you can call it, or the RPOs, that's wishbone theories.
Yeah.
So they're doing it. They just changed it and they disguised it.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, Jim, you speak of the shotgun. This is going down a different avenue I didn't want to talk about. People don't realize Tom Landry was an innovative defensive coach. He started at 4-3. The flex was really a 3-4 before it was a 3-4. Nickel and dime packages. I mean, this guy was a defensive wonder. But he did bring back the wishbone. The wishbone's been around for a long, long time. And Tom Landry was one of the first professional teams to bring back the shotgun, you know, in the 70s with Roger Staubach and that. And, you know, Danny White was a punter, became the quarterback. I mean, this formation, Tom Landry's really the first one to bring it back from the old days and put that shotgun back into use.
Very true. And the reason he did it was vision, because the quarterback had a better vision. When he was off the ball, he could see the defenses, he could see the adjustments better. And that's the truth. Now, the problem is that we took it to the extreme now with some of the RPOs and everything and how they play it, because really what it did was a lot of quarterbacks can't play on the center. They're not used to taking snaps on the center as opposed to taking it from a gun position. And if you're in a short yardage situation, it makes it a little bit more difficult if you're not used to doing that.
100% agree. So, Jim, now the rules have changed in camp, and I feel, this is my opinion anyway, there's two things that does versus the team that's not good. One, the coaches don't really have a long enough time to evaluate their talent, right? It's a lot quicker. It's a lot less pads. It's a lot less game situations, a lot more 7-on-7, two-hand touch. You really can't evaluate a guy's heart if he ain't hitting. And second, I think it hurts the new players, right? If you came in, say you weren't as high as a draft choice as you were, say you were a lower draft choice, and you want to make the team, you're at a huge disadvantage because they're not going to look at you as long as if the practices aren't as long and as if you're not in game situations hitting each other. So to me, a lot of these young players are at more of a disadvantage than they were in the past because you're not seeing the full-scale player going against veterans as you would have back then. So do you agree with that, or do you think I'm shooting?
No, I agree totally, because I think what it struggles with is defense, because defense is tackling, positioning, and learning those things. And you don't get those anymore. And I understand why, but your body has to be acclimated to be successful at those things. The older players, like you said, can adjust quicker because they've been doing it for years. But the younger players, especially on defense, they got to learn the speed and how to adjust and how to position themselves to make plays. You know, there's unique talents that it doesn't matter, you know, if they whatever time, or they can do it. They can get it done. They're that talented. But the majority of people have to work at these things, work at the tackling, work at positioning yourself to make proper tackles. And it's a little bit more different. Positions that it doesn't affect it much is wide receivers and DBs, because just like you said, the 7-on-7s, the things, they can adjust to it quicker. The interior people, that's where you see the struggle at. And plus their bodies. Their bodies are not getting acclimated, because we all know it's a physically demanding game. And that's why you see the uptick in injuries. And you see where when I played, I didn't miss the game until my last year of playing at 15 years. But now you see guys continually missing because their bodies are not getting as acclimated as fast.
Jim, you talk about it being a physically demanding game, which it obviously is. Preseason games have been a beef of mine. I understand for young players trying to make the team, it's very, very important. But a veteran player who's been around a while, does he really need any preseason games at all, especially on the defensive end? I mean, it's a long season. Aren't you better off just having training camp, going to opening game, and taking it from there?
Well, quickly, I'm going to tell you two theories about this. When I first came in, and I don't know if you remember, my second year, Harvey Martin abruptly retired.
Yep.
So I became the starter. And what happened is during the preseason, we had more preseason games. I played every play of the preseason, but I also played every play of the season. They would get me ready for the season. Now, let's move forward. When I went to Buffalo, Marv Levy would not let his veterans play more. And if you remember, that was a big stickler for him, more than 14 plays game in the preseason. And I'll never forget, I played 11 plays in the preseason. And Marv went to Wade Phillips and said, why is he playing 11 plays? He said, if he doesn't know it by now, then he's not going to figure it out. And that was my 13th year in the league. And I looked at it and said, Coach, I need the time in this. If you can't figure it out, then you're not going to figure it out in the preseason. We didn't bring you here to play preseason games. So you're right. There's every different theories on that. I is a little bit in the middle. You get the younger guys more work. The older guys, you get them more conditioning. And that's the big thing. You want them conditioned to prepare them for the season.
Go ahead, Tom. If you got a couple of questions, fire away, my friend.
So, Dan, no problem. Your show, I'm just sitting back enjoying this. So, the year that this card is from 1992, if my research serves me correctly, you had 10.5 sacks that year, running amok in the NFC East. Out of the East, what was it like trying to track down guys like Randall Cunningham? I can only imagine the nightmares that he would give D linemen.
Well, for me, it wasn't that difficult. I'd rather play a guy like Randall than some of those guys like Marino, because Randall would move. So the pocket would move, and that's more difficult for the offensive lineman. With Marino, you knew where he was going to be at, but they knew it too, and they protect him with the banana theory with the offensive lineman, and he'd either step up or he might step to, but he never moved. But Randall was never stationary, so it made it a little bit easier to track him down. As opposed, that doesn't mean that you don't take away from his greatness, but I'd rather have a mobile quarterback.
Both of those Both of those QBs at one point had Keith Byers blocking for him out of the backfield too. He was another monster. I'm sure it was fun to deal with.
Yeah, he was a very talented guy. And,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the things, Jim, sacks obviously are not overrated. It's not only hitting the quarterback for loss, but giving the team a lift. I understand that, but I think the most underrated thing in football is a defensive lineman who pressures the quarterback a lot, doesn't get the sacks, it doesn't show up in the box score. 3 of those as good as 1 sack. 2 of those could be as good as 1 sack. If you're forcing the quarterback to throw early, you're messing up the tempo of the offense. But people don't talk about it. Leonard Williams, when he was with the Jets, just wasn't sacking the quarterback, but he pressured the quarterback a lot, but it wouldn't show up in the box score, and people would criticize him for lack of sacks.
And that's a very good point, Jack. Excellent point. When I coach, I always measure disruption. Who is disrupting the quarterback? Who is getting him off his spot? Who is making him move out of his comfort zone? Those things. You want those type of players. Charles Haley, that's why he's in the Hall of Fame. It's not sacks. It's quarterback disruptions, quarterback pressures. That's what got him in the Hall of Fame, because he was great at that. And when you get them off their spot and get them off their timing, then you have the opportunity for them to make mistakes.
Used to love watching Haley play.
He's a very good player, very talented.
Jim, there's a couple thoughts I got with that, right? I mean, the rules have changed that if you hit the quarterback, you can get penalized. So, I mean, I think a lot of players, when they have a sack, might pull up because they don't want to get penalized while he's throwing the ball, too. So that is one point. The other point I want to make, okay, pressures are important. I understand that. I understand you want to disrupt the passing. That makes sense. But is there anything like sending a message to that quarterback that I'm going to slam you into the ground every time that you're going to take that snap? That, to me, gets in the mind. I played quarterback. Believe me, I know. I got hit by Romanowski in high school. You know that not only you pressured, but this guy gets his hands around you. He's going to either knock the ball out or he may hurt you. And you get up the line again, and I imagine you guys talked to the quarterback when you were on the other side of the ball. I mean, that's got to be the ultimate, right? I mean, the ultimate is not only that, I'm going to take your head off next time I hit you. I was just fooling around last time, right?
Well, it depends on if you like the guy or not, because if you don't like him, and you hit him, you say, well, I'll be back in a little bit. So don't worry, you're going to get hit again. If you like the guy, you ask him if he's all right and pick him up. I'm still going to hit you, but I hope you're all right. But, hey, protect yourself. So it's a little different. John Elway, I love John Elway because of his dad. And in college, I sacked him 6 times. He got tired of seeing me because we were like brothers because we were that close all the time. But that's true. It depends on what your relationship is with the quarterback. If it's one guy that's a jerk, you're going to try to hit him. You're going to honestly be honest with you. You want to hit him hard. Right. But if you like a guy, you're not going to pull off, but it's not as intense. You know what you are. You're right.
Well, you play mind games. Bill Romanowski was known to be the dirtiest player, perhaps of all time. He was known for taking cheap shots and everything. But if you like a guy personally, do you back off a little? It's Bill Romanowski made it a point not to like anyone. He said the mentality was the coaches told you to destroy the opposition at all costs, and that was his mentality no matter what.
Yeah, but you have to look at it. You are professionals. This is what we do for a living. This is what quarterbacks do for a living. Now, I don't agree totally with the rules, how they've changed, because I think it affected the game. But we're seeing that in other sports, the NBA playoffs. There's no such thing as hard fouls anymore. And then and you can sack a quarterback. I'd never forget. I was watching the New Orleans Saints, and I want to say it was Cam Jordan, hit the quarterback, and he sacked him, and he got fined because he hit him too hard. Can you believe that? That blew my mind. So I couldn't play today.
The Players Association should have taken a collection and paid for the fine for him.
Yeah, but do you believe that? I mean,
that's crazy.
He didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah,
he put the quarterback down.
My heydays of watching football started. I was born in '81, so go from there. You came into the league in '83, and watching football back then compared to watching it now, it's like 2 totally different products are on the field.
It really is.
Guys, I think there's got to be a rule change. If a quarterback is running towards the sideline, he shouldn't be allowed to then decide he's going to stay in bounds. It should be a deception rule because the defender's running at him at top speed. And all of a sudden he decides, and then he kind of lets up because he doesn't want to hit him hard when he goes out of bounds because a flag's going to be thrown. And then the quarterback tiptoes the line. If he indicates he's going out of bounds and he's running clearly in that direction, I think it should be called before he actually goes out of bounds. Because it has to be hard. If you pull up short, the defensive play increases his chances of getting injured as well.
Very true. Very true. I wouldn't disagree with that.
Of course you would. Yeah, let's talk about football because that's what I love. Now, when you're playing the defensive line, there's a lot of different things that people don't realize is going on, and maybe they do, but I don't think they pay attention to anything but the ball in the game, right? You guys are running stunts, you're running crosses, you might be taking a gap so somebody else can circle around you. I mean, the linebackers get involved in it to a certain point. What was your favorite stunt on a line? Was it coming inside? Was it somebody taking up the tackle and you getting around them? What was your favorite stunt as a defensive lineman?
My favorite stunt as a defensive lineman is the ones that Randy White called, because Randy White and me would spend hours studying the offensive line. So he would call on field. And it was a lot of times they were him first and me wrapping around them, which we call a TE stunt. and tackle first and second. And that was my favorite one because he would open up. He would open up the gap because people would chase him, and it was like stealing candy from a baby with him because they were so afraid that he was going to get through that he'd take two, and I just come around and I either have the center or the guard coming back to play because they'd be looking, and that was my favorite one. Later on, I had Leon Lett, I had Russell Maryland, and those guys, and then I loved being the first one, E.T. Get him upfield, come underneath the tackle, and Russell would, or Leon or Tony Casillas, they would always make sure that they're occupying two to open up space for me.
So Pags, James, we call him Pags. He's a Philly sports guy, another Philly guy.
My guy.
Yeah, he does a great show. He's really good at what he does, and he's watching right now. And Jim, he wants to know: did you mimic your game after anyone? Who were some of your favorite players that you kind of looked up to that you tried to not emulate? Go ahead.
That's a great question. When I was young, I did watch Deacon Jones a lot, and then I watched him, but then they outlawed the head slap, so I couldn't use that. So what I did was watch, obviously, Mean Joe Green and the guys like that. And then actually, believe it or not, Lyle Alzado, guys like that. A lot of guys that I mimic, I tried to do things that they did. And Ed Jones was unique because he was so tall and he was unusual for football. There were things that you couldn't do. Harvey Martin was he had running back speed. So I had to adjust. I look at guys there in the Philadelphia. Clyde Simmons and Reggie White were obviously great to study. Yeah. I did do some of the hump moves that Reggie did, and they were very successful because I understood leverage from
his strength was incredible for Reggie's.
But everybody talks about the strength. A lot of the times, the hump is not a strength move; it's a leverage move. You get them moving a certain way, and then you leverage them, and their bodies get out of whack. And that's the thing people understand. And Reggie was one of the all-time greats, and he was so flexible. People don't realize how flexible he was. But for
the bend.
Yep. And that's the thing that got him. And once he got you going one way, he could use your body and your leverage against you. Guys like
That's
that.
some memories with Deacon Jones. I mean, the fearsome foursome with Merlin Olsen, Lamar Lundy. They had a slogan. They said, "We meet at the quarterback."
Yep.
It was and
Joe Green was just a different guy. You talk about guys in this era. Joe Green was just different from everybody. I mean, he was like Reggie, just phenomenal athlete, phenomenal player because he could do things and he understood how to attack offensive linemen. And that's what you have to learn to be successful. How do you attack offensive linemen? It's just like any other sport. You have to study them and understand what their weaknesses are.
Right. So Jim, in the coordination during the defense, I mean, even in camp when you're working together, I imagine you're working with the linebackers and sometimes the safeties who are up close to the line of scrimmage. How important is the communication of what you're playing? There's run calls against a certain way, wide side of the field, what the strength of their offensive line is, all that stuff. And, of course, there's plays for the passes. How important is everyone's role? Because, again, we look at the ball, we see the guy that sacks the quarterback and recovers the fumble, but no one really looks at what's going on in a defense for these guys to pop open and get these plays. And if I'm correct, these plays are designed to a large extent when you're coming up before a game. So how important is the communication, and who's really calling it? Is it the line? Is it the linebackers? And so forth.
It's checks. First of all, I'm gonna tell you a story. When we got really successful, Ken Norton Jr. who is the defensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. He's like my little brother, and he's been for years. But we would meet every.
I went through my cards this morning. That's why I have them all readily available. I knew I was going to be
ready. Any name you name, he's Tom's ready for you.
I'm ready.
we would meet on Thursdays. Every Thursday after practice, the whole defense would come together, and we'd look at the film of the opponent that we're going to play. And what we would do is every position would talk about what they're seeing and their tendencies, what they saw, the keys and the tips that we're seeing as D linemen. The linebackers would go next. They would talk about their keys, what checks they're going to make, and why they're making those checks. So the defensive line can understand. The safeties, they would go and say the same thing. This is why I'm making this check to the linebacker. So the linebacker knows if he makes that check, he saw something. He saw a key, a tip, or things like that. And that's how we work. Each position. The corners, they're out on the island, so they didn't have to work. They just cover the man they got on top of them. But that position down the middle is what was really key. The outside linebackers to know if we're calling things and they hear things from us, we saw something. We saw something quick.
Right. And I think it's important that people understand that it's just not chasing the guy with the ball and who's the best athlete wins, because that's not always the case. Now, the quarterback comes up the line. He sees a defense formation that was called before the play. He calls to an audible. How well does the defense know the audibles of the other team? And what are your quick adjustments? Well, even if they don't, say they come up, he changes the formation. All you can do is really go off the formation, right? Basically,
And what defenses know is that when the quarterback comes up and he checks things, he saw something in the defense. Plus, he's counting how many people are in the box, because that makes it a run pass option now.
Right.
If you have 6 or more, they're not going to run the ball. They got to throw it. But if you have 5 or less, now they have the numbers. They're always looking at what the numbers are. That's what they're doing. They're checking to see numbers and seeing where the safety is. Is he high or low? That's why disguise is so important. And that's what they got. If you look at the Super Bowl, that's how they got Mahomes. They kept disguising it, pulling safeties up and down, moving people. Now he's not sure if it's a 6-man box, it's a 5-man box, and things like that. And they do that, and all the time they discuss it. Okay, this is how we're going to disguise it. We cannot let him know what our intentions are.
Okay, so he makes his call. You see the call come up. It could be a fake audible, right? I mean, he could be just playing games.
That's true.
He could call anything and just say anything, and you guys and the defense may think he's making a change at the line of scrimmage. So there's always a chess game going on in football. One of my coaches I played for says it's what it is a violent chess game. You know, you're always thinking 2 moves ahead, and you're always trying to counter what the other guy's doing. So I wanted really to get into that with you today before we go on to our next segment, to let people know that, you know, that football is very complex at its core. Never mind the playbook, never mind the drills you're running. Even before a play, during a play, things are happening that they really don't know about. So I really want to get into that today.
But Mac, think about this. What is the most stationary position in any level of football?
Most stationary?
Yeah.
Yeah, the center. I was going to say center.
The offensive line. So the offensive line, if you understand what the offensive line, because they can move tight ends, they can remove receivers, they can move backs, they can even really move the quarterback.
Right.
But the offensive line is stationary. So if you understand when they make their audibles, what are they doing? Are they looking back? Are they adjusting their stances or things like that? Then you can see, kind of get an idea. It's not always, like you said, 100%, but you have an idea of how they're going to try to attack you. And that's
as opposed to an offensive lineman being up on his toes more, leaning forward a little bit more, as opposed to leaning back on his heels a little bit. That kind of may give you a little edge on whether it's a pass or run also.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a lot of reads that defense are doing. That again,
and you can also understand when the offensive linemen say I'm just using an example, a 3-4, and they make an audible. He starts to look at that linebacker. You know they're going to try to rub and get to the linebacker. 4-3, the same thing, is they're looking for advantages too. They think what they think, and offensive coordinators think defenses just go out there and they're just going to run through things. They don't understand that we study a lot. The successful teams, the successful defenses, spend as much time on the field, off the field, studying tendencies as they do on the field.
100%.
Jim, there are very few true lockdown cornerbacks, but take Deion Sanders, for example. Quarterbacks would be reluctant to throw to his side of the field. Did that make it so much easier for, the defense if they have a lockdown corner? Because that side of the field there's going to be a lot less action on.
Great point, and a great thing is that when you had those guys like Deion that were exceptional, there is, because now you can adjust, you can roll your coverage away from him because he's got his side locked down. And it's very seldom that he's going to give up things. This is for Tom. Eric Allen was a lockdown corner, Eric Allen, and you could adjust your. But Eric was also a Sun Devil, and I'm a Sun Devil by.
So there's a little love going on there. Tom, before we let you go, we're going to go to commercial and come back with Jim on the other side. Any other question you want to ask Jim before we go to commercial?
Is going against offensive linemen in the league back in your day, who was probably the most difficult to go against, the battle to get by?
For everybody has their guy. And for me, it was a guy in Atlanta who played quite a while, was Mike Kent. I never figured it out. I study him. I know his tendencies and everything. Mike Kent was that guy for me. And, he's not a Hall of Famer. I didn't have any issues with some of the Hall of Famers. It was him. The only other guy that I could say was the Widowmaker, Jackie Slater.
Everybody had problems with Jackie Slater, that's for sure.
It's kind of funny. You mentioned Joe Green, Jim. He said once that Dave Herman, who was an offensive lineman for the Jets on their Super Bowl winning team, was the only player in either league he couldn't beat. Because for whatever reason, Herman had Mean Joe Green figured out, and Joe Green admitted it.
There was some guys that figured you out.
Yeah.
They would study you as much as you were studying them.
Okay, folks. So, Tom, thank you for coming. We appreciate you coming
guys
in.
for having me.
Great talking.
Thanks, Tom.
Yes,
Same here, Mr. Jeff Coat.
And, folks, we will be.
Fly.
Yes, sir. Go Birds. You know it.
Just don't fly against the Cowboys.
I know. I hear you. It might be a rough year for us. It might be a rough year.
Folks, we'll be right back after these messages.
Thank you, fellas.
Thank you for stopping in. Folks, couple-minute break, and we'll be right back on the other side with a little bit of predictions. We'll be right back after this.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Infoline. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
Alex is just
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's gonna be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he gonna know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get any...
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. You're joining us for our This Week in Sports Day on Sunday, which will be later going to the big football show as we get closer to the NFL start date, which I am looking so forward to covering this year. Just a couple little things before we start up. We are also on the Northeast Streaming Sports Live on YouTube, Facebook. We're on Twitter, we're on Twitch, we're on Instagram. So if you get a chance, go over to YouTube, subscribe to the show. We'll have great shows like this and great guests on all the time. Check out our Facebook page that is at N-E Streaming Sports. Like, follow, and share if you can. And last night, Jim, we ran 3 semi-football pro games live on that network. We covered one of them, the Connecticut Mustangs. And it's been a real fun watching live football again. So we'll be doing that every week, trying to get other semi-pro football leagues involved during different times of the year. So we have football, semi-pro football streaming live all the time.
That's great.
Yes, and we're pretty excited about it. It's more,
Is Jim allowed to sign up if he wants to play? I mean, it doesn't affect any Hall of Fame eligibility, I don't think. I mean,
it's a good question.
I might be quite tad a little old to be playing, and I can play Madden though. But
how about special teams only?
They have to be real special.
I don't know. Excuse him, Jim. I mean, you just see. I know how these thoughts even get.
Jim would be good on the pile still, I bet, even now. Okay, loose ball, getting in there, getting it from the guy on the bottom.
Jack, I'm a realist. I'd be good for one play.
Right.
And I'd be in my head to get out of there.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jim, last week we started predicting the places where teams would finish in divisions. And last week we went to, let me bring it up here real quick. We went to the AFC West, and this was our predictions last week. We thought KC would be first, San Diego, Denver, and then the Raiders. Kansas City, I think, is probably still one of the favorites in the AFC. San Diego improving, Denver improving a little bit. The Raiders, I think, are kind of lost in the sauce over there. They're not sure what they really want to do. Running, passing. I don't know. I don't know about their head coach. I really don't. I mean, he knows a lot about the game. He's a great offensive coordinator, but head coaching, I don't know if he's really as good as some of the head coaches. What do you think about that?
That's a great point, because I would have put this is me personally, and I agree with you on some of the things on Gruden, but I would have put him second, because
really,
just the things that we talked about previously. San Diego has a new coach. Denver probably has one of the best defense, but they have quarterback issues.
Right.
And San Diego's got a tremendous, but it is still a new system that you're installing. Gruden, correct me if I'm wrong, this is his third year.
Right.
He's going to have to make a move. And I think that he has the offensive talent to do that. Defensively, with Marinelli, they're going to play a little bit more of an aggressive scheme. And they're not going to beat Kansas City on a consistent basis. We know that. But I would have put Las Vegas second.
Very interesting. Very interested. I thought that during the year, they kind of changed their style. In the beginning of the year, they were playing aggressive physical offense, running the ball. And then they beat Kansas City throwing the ball. And it looked like they just stopped trying to be aggressive on offense. And I think that's why they went through their losing scheme. I don't think Gruden really knows what he wants to do. It's confusing to me because, he did win with Tampa. He did win with the Raiders a little bit. Of course, he took on over a Tampa Bay team that was already Super Bowl caliber. But
Tony did leave him town.
Yeah, so I don't understand what Gruden's thinking. That's all I'm saying, Joe.
Gruden's heavily into quarterbacks, but I'm going to tell you, Gruden addressed the situation, the most underrated thing in football that's not addressed by teams as well as they should, is the backup quarterback position, because there's a good chance your starter is going to go down at some point, maybe even for the full season. He's got Marcus Mariota, an established starter, as his backup. But the Raiders, Mariota can win in an emergency. Some of these teams have career backups, which really can't get it done. So their starting quarterback better not go down.
Jack, he has 12 quarterbacks on that team, for God's sakes.
Well, how many are capable? Look, Jim, when you played for Buffalo, Frank Reich, I believe, was the backup. Am I correct?
No, he was not.
Oh, he wasn't at that point. Okay.
No, he was already gone.
He was gone, but right before you, that's a great backup quarterback. And some of these teams, even like Peyton Manning, he never wanted a top-of-the-line backup. He never got hurt, Peyton, so it worked out. But some of these teams, look at the backup they're going to throw in. It's a disaster waiting to happen. They're one injury away from their season going down the drain. I mean, and at least John Gruden, he addressed the situation with, an excellent backup in Mariota.
I know Mac is smiling about that, but he does make a point.
Yeah, he does.
You have an experienced player who's played games in this league, and it's very hard to find those guys that are willing to do that. And that's some of the points why I think the Raiders will be better than people expect. But you made a good point too, Mac. They have to, and that's the thing with a lot of coaches. They fall in love with a certain thing. Like you said, they were running the ball well, and they fell in love because they beat the Chiefs throwing the ball. Now I'm in love with this. Instead of doing the things that you're good at, keeping it consistent, because the players love consistency and they love the structure. So they know what they do well, and you're trying to make them do something because it was good against Kansas City. This is going to be good against other teams.
Well, Pax brings up the point of Foles, and this is my opinion on backup quarterbacks. I think the backup quarterback is as good as the team. I mean, when Earl Morrall came in, he played on great teams. When Foles came in, he had a great team to fall back on. You're a backup quarterback for a reason. You're a backup quarterback because you can't start. And I really don't think that a backup quarterback is as important as Jack's making it out to be. If you have a great team, If you have a great team and he can hand the ball off and he can make some throws and the defense plays well, you can win with him. You don't need somebody to step in and light the league on fire. You
Nate
need
Sudfeld in the Eagle-Washington game last year. He was inept in that game. It cost the Giants a playoff position.
Eagles threw the ball, the towel in, Jack. They would have started you if you want to sideline that game. So, I mean, listen. I understand you got to have a capable backup. I got that. I understand that. But I think if you're – go ahead, Jim.
To his point, and I have to agree with Jack. I can't believe I'm saying this. I agree with Jack, but
yes, that's fine. That's fine.
He has his point. Think about this: Joe Montana, possibly one of the greatest quarterbacks that ever played. Correct? Who was his backup? Steve Young.
Well, Steve Young, yeah.
Steve Young became a great. So could you imagine? And then
but Jim, that's different. Jim, that's different. They brought him over there to be the starting quarterback eventually. I mean, he was a starting quarterback with Tampa.
Danny White.
Again, Danny White was the punter, Staubach left. What did they have to choose from? I mean, who did you have left there? I mean, I don't know who they I mean, you could say Greg Morton. You could say Greg Morton and Roger Staubach, and it carries a lot more weight because they were both very good starting quarterbacks. But all I'm saying, Jim, is that if you're a capable backup on a bad team, you're still going to lose and probably lose worse. That's all I'm saying. And I don't think you should have a bad backup. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying Jack's saying you need Mariota there, and that's a great play for the Raiders. I think it's a lot more important that they decide what kind of team they're going to be. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
I agree. It's less pressure on Carr if they're a running team.
Right.
And I'm still not convinced Carr can win. He did in Kansas City, like you said, but can he win consistently if everything's on him? And that's the point I think you're making. You need that running game. And in this day and time, if you can run the ball successfully, then you got an opportunity to be.
I think there are two categories for quarterbacks. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you look at it this way from a player's viewpoint when you played? There's a quarterback that's a game changer, and there's a quarterback that's a game manager. A game changer would be a Patrick Mahomes. You know, the few elite quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, and then they're game managers. Well, we can win with them, but everyone else has to step their game up a bit. And if we all step our game up a bit, we can win with him. But he's not going to be a difference maker himself. Am I correct there?
Very correct. Look at, for example, Troy Aikman gets hurt on Thanksgiving. Before Thanksgiving game, they put in Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett is not going to be a game changer. What Jason Garrett was a game manager. Don't mess it up. Throw it to Michael Irvin and Alvin Hartford. Let them make plays.
Do their thing.
I can use that as an example. You know,
and that offense, right. And the offensive line was great. Emmitt Smith was great. I mean, again, I understand what Jack's saying. I just don't think Marcus Mariota is the answer. That's all I'm saying. It's good.
And Jamie makes a good point too, because you look at how the Eagles won the Super Bowl.
Right.
You look at how they were, and then Foles came in, and Foles really, you know, they had some really good. They had a great defense, and they had great people surrounding them. And that's the thing that helped them become successful. The Jets are going to have to do that someday, hopefully in our lifetime, Jack. But,
yeah. Well, yeah. So listen, Jim said something.
Wait a minute, Jack. We're getting close out of time. So let's go through the predictions real quick. Well, not so quick, but enough that we kind of know what we were predicting. And AFC North, I think, is going to be one of the toughest divisions in the league. You got Cleveland, who improved a lot. They got a great running game. Baker Mayfield, not a great quarterback, but very good. You got the Ravens, who have a great running game, and that's based off Jackson. They got him a little receiver. They're going to try and get him some help on the throwing. You got Pittsburgh, who always has a tough team. Ben's probably last chance. They're going to go back to the running game, I think, because they got rid of the offensive coordinator. And then you got Cincinnati. And Burrows played really well for them. But he got hurt, and believe it or not, they won more games when he was out than he was in. So maybe they just put too much pressure on the young kid to try to win the games. I'm not sure. So I don't know about both of you, But I'm thinking that it's going to be a dogfight near the top between Cleveland and Baltimore. I'm going to give Cleveland a little bit of edge, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and the Bengals. What do you think, Jim?
I think that, like you said with Cleveland, they're getting better. I like Baltimore, but I still like Pittsburgh. And the reason I like Pittsburgh is because they know how to win, and they have had success. They haven't been to, since his first year, they haven't been to Tomlin's to the Super Bowl, but I think they know how to win. I think if they can get that running game figured out, they could be scary because they play against Baltimore well, they play against Cleveland well. Cincinnati, they're going to get better. I don't know if they're there, but I'm going to go, this is just my opinion. I'm going to go Pittsburgh. I still think they got Big Ben, and if they can run the ball, I'm going to go Baltimore. I'm going to go Cleveland. Now, they're all going to, if you look at their records, they're all going to have winning records. And then Cincinnati. That's just my opinion. I think Big Ben is still, he can't throw the long ball, and I heard you mention that. But if they can make him understand that he's going to have to change his game some for them to be successful, and that running game will help him understand that, then I think Pittsburgh is still the team that's going to be the beat in the AFC North. That's just my opinion.
I'll tell you, I don't agree with Jim here, except for Cincinnati in last place. I think, listen, the Pittsburgh Steelers, you look at their record last year, 12-4, but they were 11-0. They were one of the best teams in the NFL, not the best team the first 11 games, of course. And then they went, they lost 4 out of their last 5 going into the playoffs. Then in the playoffs, they were dreadful the way they started the ball. The ball gets snapped over Big Ben's head. Right off the bat, they're down 28-0, in that playoff game. And I think Big Ben's on his last legs. We talked a little while ago about difference makers and game managers. He was a difference maker all the years in his prime. Now he's no more than a game manager. And I think the story in Pittsburgh this year is going to be Big Ben hanging on. Big Ben could see the end of the line for him. And these veterans, and I don't have to tell you, Jim, because you experienced it, and I never did. Of course, you're trying to hang on. You're trying to be relevant, still. And I think it's basically at the end of the line. Cleveland has a great running game, great passing game. I'm not sure it's Baker Mayfield, a game manager, difference maker, maybe somewhere in between. Baker Mayfield's had 3 years in the league, had a great rookie season, and a very good last year. The second year wasn't so good. And they're going to have to make a decision, Cleveland, what to do with Baker Mayfield's contract, whether to sign him long-term, absolutely commit to him as their guy of the future, or they could insult him and franchise tag him. Even though to me personally, you franchise tag a guy, it's a little more of a compliment. Baltimore, they made one big move. They got Sammy Watkins for Lamar Jackson. They got him a guy who I consider an elite receiver. He's been hurt. And Lamar Jackson is the best runner in the NFL, but he's disguised as a quarterback, not as a running back. I'll go with Cleveland. I think their defense has put it all together. They got a great, draft choice in Newsome there. And I just feel this is their time. They could have beaten Kansas City last year. A controversial call, a rule that should be changed, the fumble that goes out of the end zone when they practically scored. They could have won that game against Kansas City. You could argue they should have, and maybe they would have been in the Super Bowl last year. I think their time has come finally for Cleveland. Baltimore, close second. Pittsburgh, as much as I love Mike Tomlin, as great a coach as I think he is, I see them, it's no more than an 8-8 team this year. And Cincinnati, of course, is the Cincinnati. I don't expect much from them, even though Joe Burrow is, going to be a great quarterback, down the line.
Yeah. Just remember this. And what's today? It's the June 27th. Najee Harris. I'm just telling you. Just remember I said that. That is going to be the difference for Pittsburgh. Now you got a unique and explosive running back that can play in the box and outside the box. So it opens up the offense. Remember, I said that now. He might be the rookie of the year.
Listen, I don't disagree with you. I just think that, listen, Cleveland to me is the best overall team in that division. They got the running game. They got a very good quarterback who needs that running game. They got a very good defense. Their special teams are solid. Baltimore, I think, Jim, this is their last year for their scheme. If they don't do it this year and that option scheme is not working, they're going to have to do something about it. I mean, we say Jackson is a great running quarterback. Well, let me tell you something, and not to put Jackson away at all. When the linebackers and defensive backs are chasing the wide receivers and there's nobody there to tackle you, you're going to be a good running back, right? There's nobody keen on you. And if you're keen on Jackson, you're not going to stop him anyway. That's ridiculous. So it does give him an unfair advantage over a regular running back, right? You hand the ball from the back. Okay, so let's just say that. But if they can't, I don't know if Jackson is a good, pure throwing quarterback. I know he can make plays with legs. And so even getting this wide receiver, I'm not sure if that's really going to make them a Super Bowl team. I don't know. You know, if they do it, I'll eat my words. I still think Cleveland is the best overall team. I give Pittsburgh a chance because of Tomlin, and if they go back to physical football, they can win a lot of games. So I still think Cleveland does it. Pittsburgh and Baltimore will be a game apart. They'll all be like within 2 or 3 games of each other. I'm sure.
Just like last year.
Yeah, and so I got to give the edge to the Browns. That 2 running backs, Chubbs and his name real quick, Hunt. They're unbelievable. They can catch, they can run. They're strong, they're fast, and the line does a good job for them. They're almost impossible to stop. If you stop their running game, you pretty much stop the Browns. But I don't know if anybody can, and it worked out well for Mayfield last year. And
well, with Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, they have a heck of a passing game as well.
Yeah, they're 2 running backs, Jack. There's no pair like them in the league. None. You can't.
They got to win games. They got to win.
Yes. Yes. I
just like Pittsburgh for what they brought back to that team, and they've had success. And like Jack said, they were 11-0 before they, the wheels fell off. So there's something there.
True. Like I said, I think last year, and I think in the NFC, the West, we'll get to NFC as we go along the line. I kind of compare that to the NFC West with all those really good 3 teams at the top going to be battling against each other, and it might come down to tiebreakers at the end of the year. I think those are going to be the two best divisions in football.
Jamie, just to let you know, Jamie agreed with you, Jack.
Well, because I'm right. He can recognize, I think you look at it, Jim, from a player's viewpoint with Big Ben. You kind of can relate to him a little. And I think players scratch and claw. They never want it to end for them. Okay. And with Big Ben, I mean, he's been a great quarterback, a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. But you could tell at the end of the season, he was really badly in decline. Sometimes a guy's hurt and we don't see it. If Big Ben was anywhere near his peak, he wouldn't have had to take the pay cut. He could have played hardball with the Steelers, but the Steelers would actually cut Big Ben had he held firm. They would actually cut him, and that should tell you a lot because that's something they never would have done if he was in his prime because he would have held a hammer over them, not them over him.
You make valid points.
Yeah, he does. He really does. Once in a while, Jim. Don't give him too much credit.
Next week, ask Jim how he could say it was easier for him to chase after Randall Cunningham than Dan Marino. I'm trying to put myself in Jim's spot, which is impossible because I didn't play. But Randall Cunningham would have drove me crazy. He would have worn me out. I would have been exhausted chasing the guy, and you never could catch him. Dan Marino has that quick release, so you're not going to tackle him. He'll get rid of the ball.
Jim, Jim, one day we'll just have a session where me, you, and Jack sit down and we'll talk about real football and explain to him the hardness of trying to break a pocket as for the linemen who know where the quarterback's going to be when they don't know where
You can't catch Randall Cunningham, Lamar Jackson. I don't want to know from those guys. I'm never going to catch them.
Sure
They're
you
too
can.
elusive. They're too quick. They'll take
I'm
off.
gonna send you video. You can't catch them.
Yes, you can. You sure
It's
can.
the hard ones are the ones that don't move. The hard ones because they can protect.
I got to
and
learn
look at
about
it.
that. This is intriguing stuff.
And they frustrate you because you work your tail off to get there and the ball's gone. When the play's still alive, and you got a chance, boy, that's like sweet things in your ear.
And nothing
man.
against. I like Randall.
Oh, Randall Cunningham, great quarterback.
But why is Marino in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Oh, the Marino is much better. Don't misunderstand me. I'm saying if I'm a defensive lineman, it would be frustrating trying to, tackle Lamar Jackson, Randall Cunningham. It's frustrating.
Jack, next week we have run out of time, folks. Next week we'll have Jim back and coming more and more on as the season gets closer. I can't wait to have him up here full time when we start really doing NFL. Great job today, Jim. Great job to Tom. Great job to Robert for coming in. Folks, we appreciate you spending some time with us on your Sunday. Last show of the week. We'll be back Wednesday, 8 to 10 a.m. Have a great weekend, folks. Take it easy.
Have a great weekend.
Take care, guys.